So today what we're going to dive into a little bit is not only kind of the methodology that some of our top advisors use to put together their annual service plan or how they're going to attack the year with each of their clients. For that, I brought on a member of our team, Solomon Stewart, who's the VP of Retirement Service Development here, and he'll be able to go through a nice walkover on how he puts together his service plan for the year for his clients as well. And then after Solomon, I'm going to take over and show you a little bit inside the RPAG Advisor Portal and how you can utilize some of the tools and technology that we have available to you, not only to create an efficient service model, but to maintain an efficient service model year over year. So again, thank you all for your time. But without much further ado here, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Solomon Stewart, who I mentioned is our VP of Retirement Service Development here. And Solomon's going to talk a little bit about how he's going to prep for 2023 coming up. So Solomon, go ahead and take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Luke. I appreciate it. A few different things we'll talk about today. So as Luke mentioned, we'll talk about the service plan, kind of how that comes together. But I think what is actually more interesting is sort of the other things that we'll end up talking about with clients throughout the course of the year. So how do we plan that? How do we make sure that clients are understanding what we're going to talk about? And then as you think about it from the business side of it, running your practice, how do you make sure that you're being most effective in accomplishing your goals? So, as we think about it, the first thing we do when we're looking at the upcoming year is take a look at the prior year. So one of the things that we'll take a look at is we have a kind of recurring meeting schedule with each of our clients. And a lot of that's dictated by when scores come out and how frequently they want to meet. But that's one of those things where I'll kind of look back on it and say, was I really overwhelmed in one month or another? And are there meetings that we might be able to move around? We found that a lot of clients are pretty flexible in terms of when they want to have their meetings. Obviously, quarterly clients, we kind of fall into those big months, right? February, May, August, and November. But particularly for the annual or semi-annual clients, you might have quite a bit of flexibility in terms of when you could move those meetings around or when you could schedule them out. So for your personal sanity and making sure that you're able to deliver the services that you want for your clients, doing that exercise once a year, we found always very, very helpful. At the same time, also taking a look at the service level that you're providing for those various clients, right? So, relative to the compensation that you're earning on those plans, is that in line with the level of service, the number of meetings, the number of special projects, those types of things that are coming up? So as you're planning out your upcoming year, it's always a good time to think about that as well. Our conversation today, as I mentioned, we'll really break it up into two pieces. One is the service plan, and then there's everything else. We did a webinar not too long ago talking about the service plan development and the structure, and I think Luke will take you through how you actually build that within the system. So from the technical aspect, how you build it, and then as you think about more of the service aspect of how do you build it, what goes in there, how frequently are you meeting, a lot of that, again, is dictated by the level of service that you're going to provide for a given client. So how many meetings per year, what's in the investment advisor agreement, are you doing benchmarkings for them, are you doing plan reviews, special projects, well sends, things like that. So I'll just quickly share what our structure looks like. So this is our typical service plan. The thing that I like about this is once you build it, it's generally built. So I can use this year over year. For the vast majority of clients, we're not changing which month we do a particular meeting or a particular service. But that said, every year we'll go through all of these for clients and make sure that things are aligned and I have an understanding of what special projects are coming up. So these blue areas over here on the right, those are recurring projects. So each year with a client, I'm going to aim to do one or two of those. So as I'm thinking about the upcoming year, I'm going to really back into some of those larger projects. So things like a provider analysis, there's some lead time on that, right? You need to go solicit quotes from the record keepers to get that set. So I want to make sure that I've got that on my radar several months ahead of when I'm actually doing the meeting so that I don't find myself looking at it, preparing for the meeting a couple of weeks before and going, oh, shoot, we didn't do this. So just kind of planning future projects throughout the course of the year and when we need to get started on those. So we've got ample lead time is very, very important. So once this is built in the RPAG portal, there's a really nice feature where you go into the client file and you hit copy previous, and it maps over everything that you've got. So it's essentially ready to go. So we build this at the outset of the client relationship, again, based on what's in the investment advisory agreement and what our level of service is going to be, what things we're planning to deliver for the client over the course of any given year. This I use as my agenda building tool for any given meeting, but I also use it as kind of my agenda building tool for the course of the year. So for this, there's a lot more detail in this presentation. This is available on the Resource Center. So it dives into all of these various services, how you can deliver them, what are some of the materials involved, and then general discussion points and things that you would hope the client gets out of them. The other piece of this that I always like to have either at the end of the prior year or beginning of a new year is really this annual goal setting conversation or the total retirement review conversation. So these are really broad strategic planning types of discussions that we'll have with clients. So if I have it at the end of the prior year, then as I'm looking at my new year, so say into 2023, I know what the client's goals and priorities are going to be, which helps me scope out some of the additional projects that might be going on for the client. If we're having it at the beginning of the year, a lot of times it's helpful to come with suggestions. So you can do your planning sort of behind the scenes and then come to the client for that annual goal setting conversation and say, here's what I was thinking might be most applicable for your organization and your plan as we're working through it. So I'm a big fan of this particular document. I think it helps set the stage for clients, helps sets your agendas, again, for any meeting, and then also for the course of the year. So take a look at that document and this overview. If you have any questions about what some of those pieces might be or how you deliver them, of course, the RPAG support team is available to help as well. So the next component of how we think about the planning for a year, possibly more interesting. So there's always going to be projects that come up, and as we think about the course of the year, we may have intents of what we want to talk about with clients over the course of, at any given point in the year. So a couple of things from more of an administrative perspective to be very conscious of timing on would be things like plan design discussions. So for a couple of reasons, one, if you're talking about potentially going to safe harbor, a lot of record keepers need some lead time, right? They have cutoff dates that tend to be August or September to say a plan wants to go safe harbor for the next year. Similarly, for plans that are already safe harbor, sometimes they can only make those changes at the beginning of the plan year. So you've got a little bit more lead time on those generally, but it's one of those things where if you're going to have those discussions, you really need to work backwards in terms of your timing to make sure that you can have those discussions and they can be implemented effectively. In a similar vein, one thing that's always important to keep in mind and try to understand about your clients if you can is, particularly for larger clients, when's their budget season? So if you're talking about making match changes and you go into a client, you have that conversation and it's late July and everyone on the committee is all for what you're proposing for increasing their match or making some adjustments, then it's great. But if you've missed their budget conversations, then it's kind of a waste of time, right? You want to make sure that you're able to work around the client schedule in order to get those types of proposals approved so they can implement them in a reasonable time frame. So those are some of the more kind of administrative approaches that we'll take. The other thing, of course, is legislation. So as we think about this quarter, it's going to be a lot of Secure Act conversations. Prior to the Secure Act coming out, I was planning to have a lot of the ESG conversations around the new Department of Labor ruling that came out in November. So there's going to be a lot of conversation around legislation. Litigation could come up, which also drives some of those conversations as well. So trying to appropriately filter those through your year, through your service plan is also very, very important. The other thing particular to the Secure Act is not a lot of the provisions in it are applicable right now. A lot of those things are going to be applicable beginning 2024, 2025. So those would be conversations. You've got some time to prepare for them, but you also probably need to have some plans in place and some ideas of how you want to move forward with your clients come later this year when we're looking at implementing for 2024. But as those things come up, kind of planning out the course of your year, understanding when the important deadlines are going to be is key. The last piece that I will mention is really for any organizations where you might have other lines of business or other types of services that you want to introduce to your clients. A lot of those can be done on a strategic timing. So for example, we work with the clients on regular benefit or health benefit side. We work with them on the PEPs. We want to introduce things like executive benefits. And as we think about the calendar, there's good times to introduce some of those. So for example, in the first quarter, we tend to talk about regular benefits a lot. Most clients have their open enrollment season in November. So coming into it, beginning of the year, it's an easy question of how is open enrollment? Here are a couple of things that we saw our benefits clients engage with and some of the challenges they had and how we might have solved it for them. So you can kind of key up those conversations in a relatively straightforward way. It's a little bit more casual way rather than a kind of a blunt introduction. Here, let's talk about benefits. As we move into the second quarter meetings, it's a great time for talking about executive benefits because a lot of times plans that were failing non-discrimination testing, they just got their refunds, right? A lot of the committee members are considered HCEs, so they probably personally got those refunds. So that is a real live current pain point for them. You might get a little bit more attention talking about executive benefits at that point. As we get into the third quarter, often we'll talk about things like the PEPs, right? One of the big advantages of the PEP is that plans don't actually have to go through an audit. In the third quarter of the year, for any plans that are on a calendar plan year, they're probably knee deep in their audit. So they're feeling the pain of what it takes to gather all the information, the questions that are coming up from the auditors. If a PEP might be a good fit for them, that might be the time when you get the most attention from them as well. And then finally, as we get into the fourth quarter, it's an excellent time to talk about things like WellSense, financial education, particularly as people are looking at planning for the new year. They're also going into their benefits open enrollment. So one of the aspects of WellSense and other types of financial wellness approaches is how do they take advantage of their benefits? So it helps the participants actually navigate the benefits offering. So as they're going into open enrollment, that's helpful. From the committee member side, a lot of times they're in the process of evaluating what are we going to offer for our benefits. So the prospect of we have the employer report that's available that tells you what are your participants saying, what do they need, what do they want. That feeds into how do you develop your benefits offering and make it most effective for your participants. So again, it becomes timely for them. And this is something that you can kind of build out as a recurring schedule throughout the course of a year. A lot of these aspects are going to come up over time with your plans. So that's really about it. I mean, I'm a big fan of planning ahead of time, big fan of agendas. As you think about some of these pieces, one tip that might be interesting is actually building out agendas further out in the year, right? You don't need to build your agenda just for the meeting as it's coming up. You can build out your agendas for the entire year. And that way you've got kind of this reminder for yourself as you've built that early in the year. Oh yeah, when we get to Q3, these are the topics that we want to talk about with the clients. Luke, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Solomon. That was excellent, and always appreciate hearing your insights about how you service your book of business. Solomon did a great job of pointing out exactly, how he prepares for a year, when he's going to talk about certain topics. As Solomon mentioned, before I get started here, that PowerPoint that he referenced is in the Resource Center. But let me go ahead and share my screen here. And we'll talk a little bit more about the RPAG technology, right? Like I said, Solomon did a terrific job in kind of talking about the thought leadership behind how he puts together his service plan for the year, when he's going to talk about certain topics, etc. What I want to do, folks, is kind of bridge that and show you how you can use the RPAG technology here to efficiently store that information on a year-by-year basis and make your year-by-year planning process as easy as possible. So what I have up on the screen, a lot of you might be familiar with this. This is the RPAG Advisor Portal. This is where you log in to run reports, pull presentations, really whatever you need for your next meeting with a client or prospect. You can find it here in this advisory portal. Now, the first thing I want to point out here is kind of dead center of our screen here is this client servicing widget. Now, some of you folks might be familiar with this, and some of you maybe have never really looked at this before. But this servicing widget is a great insight into how many of your clients you have a built-out service plan for the year coming up. So you can see this widget real quick. We get a quick view on, okay, how many clients do we have with service plans? All right, looks like out of our 931 clients, only 3 of them have service plans. So it's going to be a long couple days for our team. We also see what scheduled meetings we have in the coming quarter, what reports we have to create, etc. So I wanted to point that out as a starting point so that if any of you folks here who don't have any experience using the RPAG service plan and want to get a quick look at, hey, which of my clients do and don't have a service plan, I recommend starting at this client servicing widget. We'll circle back to this in a little bit to expand this a little bit, but I just wanted to start there. So first, let me navigate to my sample client here and talk about where can we find a service plan. So clicked on client/prospect and brought up my handy dandy sample client here. And to access this particular client service plan, I'm going to scroll to the bottom of our screen. And in these little boxes, you might hear us refer to these as plan cards. There's a button in the top right that says view plan. And if we click on that, it's going to bring us to this, what we refer to as the plan details page. This is where you can see who's the record keeper on the plan, who's the TPA, etc. On this page, you're going to scroll down a little bit. And you'll notice this section here, Service Plan 2023. It's structured like a timeline. And this is going to be where you're going to want to go if you want to plan the year ahead with this particular client. When are we going to be doing investment review meetings? When are we going to be benchmarking fees? When are we going to be talking about Secure Act 2.0? All of that stuff that Solomon just mentioned, we can edit and input here. So you can see here, we already have some information put in on our service plan, but I'm going to go ahead and click this edit pencil in the top right corner here and show you a couple things about how to use this feature. So if I scroll down here, the first thing that you're going to notice is that there's a place where you can select a template. Just like if you run an investment review report or a provider analysis from RPAG, the very first thing we're going to ask you is, okay, what kind of template do you want to use for this particular plan? So what you can do is actually build out kind of client service model templates within RPAG. So whether that's, one template that you want to use across your whole book of business where you say, hey, we do one investment review meeting per year, we review the TDFs every 3 years, and we take the plan out to bid every 4 years, whatever that might be, you can set that template up here. And all you need to do is go into a client, select the services on the left-hand side. You can see you can check them off or check them off here. If you want to add them to this middle section. And then in the middle here, you see we can toggle the frequency, when the meeting's proposed and when the meeting is actually scheduled for. The service plan is very, very easy to build. Now, once we have all of our features that we'd like to see, we can actually customize this even further. If you see this edit pencil that's underneath each service, if I click this edit pencil, what you're going to see is even further customization with each of these services. You can see up at the top here, we can edit the color that this service appears in and the actual deliverable that I'll pull up momentarily. You can see we can tell the system whether or not we want the system to create a to-do based on this particular service. So, for instance, this is an investment review meeting. Maybe we tell the system that, hey, as this investment review meeting approaches, let's create a to-do to actually create this report. So, and down below here, we can also change, what the delivery method is, the description of the service, all of that stuff. So very high level of customization here for the service plan. And then real quick, I'll show you kind of what the deliverable of this looks like. I go over here. This is just a sample service plan for you. A lot of RPAG advisors really like this resource and include it in reports. This particular view of the service plan that we're looking at right now can be dropped into any of your reports that you run through RPAG. And what it really works as is a great value proposition for you as the advisor. Because, let's face it, as much as your clients appreciate all of the hard work you put in for them over a year, sometimes in their eyes, you might just be showing up once or twice a year with a report in your hand. And so this service plan, what it really does is lay out in writing all the things that you're doing for the plan and what you're providing to them and when they can expect those services. So a great way in just one page here to put together your service model and display that for your clients. So like Solomon said, usually what he does with his clients is put this together at the onset of a new client relationship and talk about, expectations, when we're going to want to meet, etc. So you can see here, I put in target months for our investment review, and then when the actual meeting is going to happen here. So again, recommend that you reach out to your clients once they sign their advisor service agreement and put together a service plan that's going to match what's laid out in that agreement. Coming back here to the RPAG Advisor Portal here, again, I'll make one more mention of the templates here. The reason why I do is that you'll notice under my templates here, I've created a bronze, silver, and gold template for our service plan. So the reason why I did that was to illustrate to you folks that, I'm sure a lot of you out there in your book of business have plans of varying sizes, probably a few plans that are very, very small, a few plans that are, 10 million plus, maybe a 20 million, somewhere around there. And you're going to service all those plans differently. So what you can do is actually create a service template for each of your plans. Now, some of you might be sitting out there and thinking, well, I'm brand new to the advisory world for retirement plans. I'm not really sure what services to provide each of my clients. If you find yourself in that situation, when you're creating your service plan, instead of starting with a My template, go to the RPAG templates, and you'll notice we actually have pre-built service plan templates based on client asset size. So for instance, how many times should you be doing an investment review for a plan that's under 2 million or over 25 million? We also have an enhanced service plan option available in RPAG, in the RPAG templates. And really what that is kind of the view that Solomon was showing earlier, where you have almost 2 columns of those services, as opposed to this look where we only have, one kind of column of the services. The enhanced service plan lists more of them side by side. So encourage you folks to take a look at that and then edit these and create your own templates as well. So again, that's where you can access the service plan for your clients. Now, if I go back here to the RPAG homepage, I'm going to bring up this client servicing widget again. So again, if you're looking to maybe start adding service plans to your RPAG Advisor Portal and building some of those out for your clients, just log into RPAG and take a look at this widget here. It's going to tell you how many of your plans have a service plan built out. And then if you want a little bit more information on all of that, you can click this little box icon here in the top right of the widget, and it's going to bring you to the client servicing page. So this is going to show you exactly which of your clients have a service plan. So again, if we look over on the left-hand side of our screen here, we see plans that we currently have in our book of business and whether or not they have a service plan. And then we can also filter this search as well. So whether we want to look at a particular client and what services they're going to be receiving, or if we want to look for a view of a particular quarter to see, hey, what do we have coming up this quarter? That's a very great way to stay on top of all the reports and deliverables that you need to create for clients and prospects. One of my favorite things about this feature is if we look on our screen right now, we can see we've got some tasks built out for Luke's sample client here, particularly a target date fund suitability review that we do once every 3 years. And look at that, it's coming up on January 31st, 2023. What you see here is that the client servicing section is actually going to give us a link here where we can say, hey, the reports hasn't been started yet. We click this link here, and it's actually going to take us directly to the page where we can start the report, run it, and then obviously save it to the client's fiduciary briefcase or email it to them, depending on how we deliver the reports. So a very cool feature there with the client servicing. And then the last piece I'll mention here is the meeting minutes. This is a feature that we introduced in late 2020, I believe, the meeting minutes, meeting agendas, and provider fund change notices. And folks, if you haven't utilized this feature yet, I really strongly encourage that you check this out. This is a great way to kind of track your workflow from beginning to end with your clients, right? We started by, on the onset of a client's relationship, building out the service plan within our RPAG and saying, okay, hey, here's the services that we're going to provide. Then we scheduled those meetings with the client and put them into RPAG. Now we've gotten a task reminder that says, hey, Luke, you have a target date fund suitability analysis meeting coming up with your client. Go ahead and create that report. Now that we've created the report and presented it to the client, how do we document that we provided that service to the client? That's where the meeting minutes are going to come into play. So let me hop back to my sample client here. And what you'll notice again on this homepage is we see in the bottom right-hand corner a section where we can create meeting minutes, meeting agendas, provider fund change notices, etc. So if you're not using RPAG to create your meeting minutes, I beg you, please give this function a try, because if you're like me and have spent hours upon hours typing up meeting minutes manually post-meeting, post-conversation with a client or prospect, you'll see pretty quickly how this automated meeting minutes feature can save you time. I won't go too much into how this meeting minutes function works. We have videos on the Video Learning Center that go over this in detail on how to create this. But just from a high-level overview, what this meeting minutes function allows you to do is to select what report you just created for your client. So let's say we created a fiduciary investment review and we presented it to this client on December 19th, 2022. I can come in here and not only select, hey, who from the committee attended the meeting, who from our firm attended as well. If I scroll down here, what you'll actually see is information that's directly from this report that automatically populates into these meeting minutes here. So for instance, if I expand this investment due diligence analysis summary section, you're going to see it says, hey, here's the asset allocation. Here's what the report said the assets were. Here's the funds that we listed as acceptable. Here's the funds that we're putting on watch list. And here's the funds that we're considering removing. So obviously we can document, especially from a fiduciary perspective, all of the recommendations that we're making. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up today, folks, is that when you're creating these meeting minutes, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, you'll see this section that says follow-up tasks. And basically what it allows you to do at the end of creating either your meeting minutes or meeting agendas is you can assign tasks to either yourself or your colleague to continue to service the client. So we have a few that are most common that advisors use. For instance, hey, you want to notify the individual who handles your scheduling to reach out to this client and schedule the next meeting. You can select a follow-up task here, assign a due date, and then from your list here, pick, Luke's our scheduling guy. I'm going to go ahead and assign a task to him that says, hey, go ahead and reach out to schedule our next meeting date. Real quick here, just want to give you folks a quick look at what the meeting minutes look like from an actual deliverable perspective. Again, much like all the other RPAG deliverables, the branding can be white labeled as well. So you can get rid of this navy blue and orange here and replace it with, something that's more appropriate for your firm's branding. But one of the things I wanted to show here was, again, we see the pending action items at the very bottom of our screen here. And if we back up to our home screen once more here, what we're going to see is, if you haven't noticed this before, up in the top right-hand corner, we have this little notification section. And this will allow us to look at tons of different notifications, whether it's, things that have been updated to the resource center, or, for instance, if a task has been assigned to us, videos being posted in the Video Learning Center. So I wanted to make this PSA as well. If you folks are ever looking for kind of the latest and greatest that we've published at RPAG, especially in either the Resource Center or the Video Learning Center, click on this little bell icon in the top right of your screen, and you can actually filter these notifications so you can see, oh, looks like, the fiduciary legal briefing was posted. Looks like that was posted yesterday, and things like that as well. So another kind of helpful RPAG tip here. I feel like I learned something new every day about this system. But the last thing I wanted to point out, going off of those tasks here, is you'll also notice next to the client servicing widget on the left side, we do have upcoming meetings, calls to make, tasks to do. And if you're looking either for a view of your firm's tasks or your tasks individually, you can actually view those under main menu in the practice management section. We have a to-dos section here that if I click on this, it's going to bring me to a page where I can view all of the created to-dos for any of our clients, any of our people that are that are on our team here. So you see, we can filter this by the type of task that it is. If we go down below here, we see looks at, what do we have going on for this week, the next 30 days, et cetera. And then down on the very bottom here, we see a quick list view of the tasks that we can filter by client. We can filter by who the task was assigned to. And we can also export this as well if we need to, take a look at kind of a macro level on, hey, what do we still have outstanding? We can see what's completed, when it was due, etc. So again, what I'm hoping that you're getting out of this, folks, is, I know that a lot of folks on the call use RPAG's reporting for investment reviews, for fee benchmarking, for whatever all of that might be. But RPAG's technology here has so much more to offer, especially in terms of practice management. A lot of that's going to be here on the home screen. You see, all the widgets I've pointed out today, the calendar info on the bottom here, and things like that. So again, if you haven't taken a look at any of these resources before, or maybe you're maybe haven't taken a look at RPAG in a little bit and say, hey, maybe we're not using this to its full extent, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to hop on a call with you and kind of talk about your utilization and how you can be getting more out of our tools and technology. We have a lot of best practices, thought leadership as well. Again, a lot of that comes from great folks like Solomon, who you heard at the top of today's call. Okay, so we have one that said that Solomon referenced the ability to copy the service plan on a year-over-year basis. How do we do that? That's a great question. I'm going to go back to my sample client here and go navigate to the service plan, which again, to do that, we go to the client, we go down here and click on View Plan, and then we'll scroll all the way down on the bottom of this page here. And what you'll see on this page is we'll see the current year service plan. And if I click over on this little kind of arrow icon here, what you'll see is Service Plan 2024 pop up, and we can go ahead and either copy the previous year's service plan. So we can say, hey, all the services that we provided last year, we're going to do those over and just plug in new dates. You can do that. Or you can start a new service plan from scratch as well. And then another question here as well. We will be sending the recording of today's session out to all of the attendees as well. So feel free to forward that along to any colleagues who maybe didn't get a chance to join us today. If they utilize RPAG or you think they could be getting some value out of this presentation, please feel free to pass that along as well. And then a last question here looks like, where can I access the client servicing page? Again, great question. You can actually access the client servicing page through two methods. You can either, right from the homepage of RPAG here, click this little client servicing button, this little square that you see in the top right of the widget here. Or if you travel up to the main menu in the top left-hand side, under that practice management section that I pointed out earlier, you'll see this client servicing button that we can click on to take us to the next one. Okay, looks like we got another question regarding CRM and RPAG integration. So some of you might have heard that one of the newest features of RPAG is that we now have a one-way data push that is able to be integrated with CRM systems. And if you're not much of a tech person like me, basically what that means is that we've introduced the capability within RPAG to link a CRM to it, and so that the RPAG system can send information to your CRM. So that's what we mean by a one-way data push, where the RPAG system is sending information to whatever CRM you have linked to RPAG. And so what that essentially does is if you update something within RPAG, certain data points, it will automatically send an API feed to your CRM and update that feed there. Now, if you have any questions about this or want to explore this a little bit, feel free to reach out to our support team. We're always happy to help and hop on a call and talk through what's needed to create that integration. We also have some documentation as well that you can pass along to your technology or system development team if they need some information on how that API connection is actually established. And also within that documentation lays out what actual data is included in that data feed as well. So again, if you're interested in taking a look at that, the CRM connectivity where RPAG can push data into your CRM, feel free to reach out to us on the support team, and we'd be happy to help you. Is there a list of CRMs supported? Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's the question was, hey, do you have a list of the CRMs that are supported? We've currently worked with Salesforce, Redtail, and maybe one or two others off the top of my head right now. So but basically, when I've asked our systems development team which CRMs we can link to, the answer has been pretty much anyone that can establish an API connection with an outside system. So again, feel free to reach out to us at support@rpag.com, and we'd be happy to help you out with that and talk through that in a little bit more detail. But if you have any questions about RPAG or the resources that we covered today, feel free to reach out to support@rpag.com or give us a call at that phone number below, 949-305-3859. And one of our advisor service associates would be more than happy to help you. But otherwise, folks, have a great rest of your day and hopefully look forward to talking to you again real soon. Thanks.